Just by trivia information, Justice Lawson is the 8th consecutive appointee to the court where I have stepped aside to let the justice be appointed. And sometimes it was easy, sometimes it wasn't easy. In any event, I do want to now introduce somebody else. Many, many years ago, I was a brand new assistant state attorney in Jacksonville, and the late Ed Austin, who was the state attorney, took me to a meeting in Orlando. And it took all day, and after 2 hours, I tapped him on the shoulder, and I leaned over to him, and I whispered, "Who is the woman on the other side of the table? She is really sharp." And he whispered back that her name was Janet Reno. And I want everybody in the room to know, as I've said many times, not once for the balance of the entire day did Janet Reno tap anyone on the shoulder and ask who I was. The person I want to invite up here, I just tell you, 3 times I introduced Janet Reno when she campaigned for governor in Jacksonville. And after the 3rd time, she still never tapped anybody on the shoulder and asked who I was. The person I want to bring up here is himself a recipient of the Lifetime Achievement Award of the Supreme Court Historical Society. He went to Sewanee, which is what makes us both great. He is one of our favorite people. He is the personification of pro bono. And let me introduce Mr. Everything, Sandy Downward.
Had anybody known that Hank could be useful? At least his flashlight is useful.
Yes.
And let me say, Mark Olive, we're very proud of you getting the Toby Simon Award today. Kelly, Hank, members of the court, past members of the court, and friends of the Florida Supreme Court. I'm really glad to have a chance to talk about Janet Reno. If you ask any of the people here tonight to talk about Janet Reno, you're going to find they're going to talk about a different subject than what I'm going to talk about. So talk to Pat Seitz and Alan Greer, and they'll talk to you about what a wonderful person she was to play racquetball and volleyball. It really wasn't volleyball because it didn't have rules, but they played softball with children, and they did have rules, and the rules were that all children 8 or under got on base. So they were called the Reno rules. Also, if you talk to Janet's family, and we're lucky to have Maggy Hurchalla and Jim here tonight, and you can hear about Janet as a great adventurer, an environmentalist, but a person who just loved the outdoors. And they'll tell you stories about the Okefenokee. Maggie will probably tell you stories about getting lost in the Osceola River and having to walk out because they found that Osceola River disappears somewhat downstream. And they'll tell you these wonderful stories about her as a person. But my job tonight is to talk to you about Janet Reno, the lawyer, who earned this award of the Historical Society and deserves this award as much as, and I'm actually going to venture to say more than anybody we've ever given it to. And the reason I say that is that Janet, throughout her career, cared about justice and did things that improved the justice system in Florida and in the United States. And I want you to think about Janet not just as a person who was first. I mean, this year, Dean O'Connor, I think I'm told that we have more women in law school than men. This is the first year. So you tend to think about women's accomplishments as first. So Janet was the first partner in a large, at that time, large law firm. She was the first woman staff director in the legislature. She was the first woman state attorney, and obviously the first United States Attorney General. So Janet was first in many ways, and we might celebrate that tonight. But that's not what I asked you to celebrate. It's important, very important. But that's not the important thing about Janet. She held these jobs, but what she did in the jobs is the important thing. And so as staff director for the Florida House of Representatives, she drafted the laws and the basic laws under which you practice every day. She drafted the Article 5 Chesterfield Smith and I both try to take credit for it. Reuben tried to take credit for it, but the person who drafted it was Janet Reno. And so we have a judicial article drafted by Janet Reno. She also drafted the no-fault divorce law and the Baker Act. So an awful lot of what we do daily as lawyers really influenced by what Janet did as a person who cared about judicial reform. Janet also had great innovation when she became a state attorney. Now, we've all known prosecutors. There probably are some here. I don't want to say anything insulting about prosecutors who have so much power, but I do want to say that not very many prosecutors like Janet Reno. Look at what she did when she became a state attorney. She was not trying to achieve the record for the largest number of people who were given the longest prison terms. She was trying to do other things, and she invented the whole diversion idea in the criminal justice system. She started a drug court. It's been copied everywhere. She started to care about issues like the environment. She cared about whether fathers pay their child support. She really cared about being a reforming attorney general, and a lot of what she did was copied by many other people throughout the country. And then she became Attorney General of the United States. I had a wonderful career there, and I want you to pause a little bit and think about things she did there. Janet had received her undergraduate degree from Cornell. She was a chemistry major. Janet hated junk science. And if you look at what she did when she was United States Attorney General, Janet changed the FBI lab, changed their protocols on a number of issues, and instituted studies that included studies of eyewitnesses. When DNA testing came along, Janet realized the importance of DNA testing and supported the establishment of innocence projects throughout this country. You find a number of people who've given tributes to Janet, include the people who run these innocence projects around the world. Janet Reno cared about law reform, cared about justice as much as anybody who's practiced law ever in Florida. And I'm really proud to be a part of announcing this award and asking Maggy Hurchalla to come and accept this award.
Where is that flashlight, Steve?
Right there.
Right there, okay.
We can get Hank to come up and hold it for you.
Laz is holding the picture. That's my big sister. She would be so very, very proud of this award. She loved being a lawyer, and she loved the law. I think she was a little sorry that she spent so much time administering the law instead of practicing the law. But she really cared about it. And the law can be stern, but I can tell you that in between sternly and fairly enforcing justice, she had a great deal of fun. Sandy was along with us when we took up all 21 slots on the Okefenokee Canoe Trail, so nobody else could be on the Okefenokee that week except us. And we continually fell out of the canoe and had a wonderful time. We went down the Swanee. She found the wild cow of the Wassissa before losing us in a river that went underground. She found no end of dirt roads around Tallahassee where she could lose us and we could have an interesting time getting out. But she really cared about justice. And when she walked from her apartment in Washington, past the sailor and the bronze sailor and the monument at Archives, she came to a corner of the Justice Department that has etched, what did I just say? I meant something else. She came to a corner of the Justice Department where it's etched in stone up there on the corner. It says, "Liberty is maintained in defense of justice. Liberty is not maintained so we can all do whatever we want to do. It's maintained so that we can do unto others as we would have them do unto us. Let me share a story about justice with you, because the most wonderful people would wander into our yard in the last 10 years, presuming, because it was Janny, it was perfectly all right to wander into the yard. And if the peacock screamed at you, you shouldn't be alarmed. And this man came up and got out of his car, and I went out and said, "Can I help you?" And let's say his name is Jack Smith, just. And he said, "I'm leaving town, and your sister changed my life. And I'd like to thank her before I leave." And he opened up his wallet and showed me his identification as a deputy sheriff in Dade County, just retired. And I said, "Well, come on in and I'll see if she's awake and if she wants to talk to you." And I went and asked Janny if she wanted to talk to somebody who said he had saved her life, and she said, yes. So while she was getting dressed, I talked to him, and he said, "I was a policeman in Miami Beach. And one of the policemen I was with killed somebody. And me and my partner were charged with perjury." He said, "Back then, you didn't get leave with pay. My wife was pregnant. I got a job hauling furniture for 3 years. We couldn't get anything out of the state's attorney's office about the case. And I didn't know what I was going to do. But I knew I hadn't perjured myself." He said, "When she got appointed state's attorney in Dade County, my lawyer called me. He said, 'I've worked with her. She's straight. Come meet with her, with me.'" He said, I really didn't know what to expect. But I met. She gave us the file that they had on it. And I told her my side of it, and she looked at me and she said, "You know, if I had been state's attorney, I wouldn't have charged you for 2 reasons. 1, I believe you. And 2, I don't prosecute people I can't convict." He said, after that, she had to run for office, and I called my lawyer and said, "Is she going to get in trouble because she got a supposedly bad cop off?" He said, "She would have done it anyway." And she would have. She really did care about justice. She really did care about people. And she would want all of you to remember that your pro bono, your public service, is part of the fact that the law is the great public service that leaves us with an orderly world to live in. And I think most of all, she would want you to remember, we heard at the beginning of this evening that we should look to the fire of love in our hearts. There's a quote from Cornel West: "Justice is the public face of love. Be proud that you represent that." She was very proud. Thank you.